Howdy all, I'm Adam the Renaissance Nerd, and as always with a video like this, I will start by saying I love real Star Wars. First generation fan, EU guy, franchise closest to my heart. I will collect, protect, and preserve real Star Wars until my end days because Disney Star Wars is trash and it cannot be allowed to be called Star Wars. And that's the thing right now we're going to talk about today. For the longest time, I and many others, we have stood on the front lines of this pop culture war and said Disney Star Wars is bad because Disney Lucasfilm cannot make good Star Wars. They don't know how to do it because not only have they abandoned George Lucas Star Wars, they have people in place who don't freaking get it. They do not understand the secret sauce that George put into it. Even George's worst stuff stands heads and shoulders above the best of Disney Star Wars. So it's kind of a surprise. Yesterday, when I poked my head up after finishing my review of the Rings of Power season finale, go watch it. You'll have a good time. When I poked my head up and I looked around, I saw that this fun little article had dropped. Hollywood Reporter James Hibbard, is Disney bad at Star Wars? An analysis. I've read this. We're not going to read every little bit. It will take us too long, especially when I stop to yell and scream. James Hibbard does not do a proper analysis. He leaves things out. We're gonna skip through it here and there because, as I said, look at this. This thing is way too long, and it honestly says nothing, and it leaves out a lot of important information that you and I already know, but normal people coming across this may not. He's going to go on to start here telling us that Disney got the franchise. They've made movies, TV shows, and funny thing is, he leaves out the High Republic. So he's leaving out a very important piece of the failure puzzle that is Disney Star Wars. He talks about the movies. Hey, they made about $4 billion. And but then they were going in the wrong direction. What he doesn't tell you is that $4 billion right here, that's gross. That's gross. And that in the end, as Forbes was forced to tell us earlier this year, Disney has only made about $1.8 billion in profit on the sequel trilogy. And add in the other ones, and maybe up to date now, they've probably only made just about $2.5 billion since they gave George Lucas $4 billion. Now, he's going to say here that the sequel trilogy problem was because it was a difference of vision. They started with Jar Jar. They went to Rian Johnson. They went back to Jar Jar, and Jar Jar didn't like what Rian Johnson did. Doesn't matter. You started with Jar Jar Abrams in the first place, a man who is a perennial con artist. The dude is one of the greatest of all time at convincing people something looks great when in fact it's utter dog shit. And that's what The Force Awakens is. Dog shit. And a decade later, people get it now. They understand that The Force Awakens was just that, a rehash of A New Hope without the heart and soul of George Lucas. So they said, so he starts off here, people were into The Force Awakens, came out, everybody was happy. Problem was, no, everybody wasn't happy. Because real fans, real hardcore EU guys like myself were already disenfranchised because they threw out the expanding universe. They threw it out right before the movie. So I was never on board, as were some people. And now, all these years later, when you get to 2017 and The Last Jedi, people joined my side. They said, hey, Adam, not me specifically, but you understand what I'm saying. They said, hey, Adam, we're there with you now. You are no longer a man unto yourself, no longer an island, no longer a nation unto yourself. You have allies. The world is with you. We reject this shit. And they rejected the rise of Soy Walker. They rejected Rey Palpatine. That's funny. He actually calls Rey Palpatine. He doesn't call her Rey Skywalker here, which I know makes the stands gnash their teeth and go, no, she's a Skywalker. Rey Palpatine has been rejected. So he's going to go on and say, okay, yeah, then they made Rogue One, and they made Solo, and Rogue One, it made $1 billion, but it doesn't have a lasting presence. No one talks about Rogue One. They talk about the final 10 minutes where Darth Vader's trashing shit. And then there's a problem there because then it makes him look weird going into the first Star Wars movie, going to New Hope, why doesn't he tear shit up there? What happened? What happened? See, Rogue One is a failure. Solo lost money. Solo lost money. They couldn't hide that, so it lost money. And then they give us a list of all the people that have things announced that didn't happen. Look at that list. That's a very large list. And most of them are untalented. Only one in here that I think has any real talent is Guillermo del Toro. And I still think he only did Book of Boba Fett because he was thinking he could get some goodwill so he could do Alita 2. I still believe that. Everybody else here, they're dog shit. I'm sorry. Rian Johnson, he's dog shit. Benioff and Weiss, they're con artists. They have no true ability. Patty Jenkins, she's been brought back to do her Rogue Squadron movie now, but that's still an if. And she has no talent on her own. She needs a massive team to help her do something. She's not good by herself. Colin Trevorrow, they ditched him. Damon Lindelof, he's an idiot, and they already ditched him too. None of these guys, none of them are good. F. Taika Waititi. All right, so that's his case, that these movies, they failed because of a lack of direction. No leadership. That's why. You see, the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy, love them or hate them, they all worked because George was there. One man, one vision. Yes, he had a lot of help to keep him on that one vision. But George made it work. And those who he turned it over to, those who he said, okay, I'm going to let you play in my sandbox. I'm going to let you build sandcastles along my great sandcastle. I'm going to let you do that. And they respected him. And I say sandcastle for a reason, because Star Wars is a sandcastle. The original trilogy is a sandcastle. The prequel trilogy is a sandcastle. And once you make a sandcastle, you really can't make many changes to it. You can make minute changes, which George did. That's why after he built the original trilogy sandcastle, he made a second one with a few changes because he could actually, because he could, one, he could, he's the creator, and two, he had to now fit things in because the technology had caught up to what he wanted to do. He's the creator. He can do it. He's George. But once a sandcastle is built, though, and it's dried, you can't change it. The only way you can change it is to break it down and rebuild it, and that's what they did with these movies, with the sequel trilogy and everything since, all the TV shows now. They made sandcastles. They bulldozed the original and made something different, but they didn't make it for the right people. And they didn't make it with any soul, and they didn't make it with any true creativity or understanding of the franchise they now controlled. First of all, they made it for people who were degenerate weirdos. Instead of a sandcastle, they made a giant spank shack for degenerate F-tards who only care about making up gay shipping. That's true. Go look at X Twitter. All they care about is shipping people to be gay together. That's all they care about. So now he's going to go on and talk about the TV shows. The TV shows. The Mandalorian was a success. Not really. 2019, said 2019 it debuted and everybody loved it. Remember what happened in 2019? Everybody was trapped in their house. Everybody was trapped in their house, had nothing to do. Well, lots of people had nothing to do. I always had something to do. I was fine. I was writing a book. That's what I was doing. But everybody was trapped in their house. People were rejecting the sequel trilogy, and they thought that Jon Favreau was their friend. They thought Dave Filoni was their friend. They thought, oh, they're going to come in, they're going to do something nice, small, easy to understand in Star Wars. Oh, it's taking place before the sequel trilogy. Maybe it'll fix the sequel trilogy. Oh, maybe there's a civil war going on at Lucasfilm where Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, they're going to save the day. Remember all that bullshit? That's what they freaking thought. And they lucked out with Baby Yoda goddamn Grogu. That little green bastard, he was money. He was gold that Disney wasn't even ready to capitalize on. That was the truth. Mandalorian Season 1 was middling. It was successful because there was nothing else. Season 2 was being panned until Luke Skywalker showed up at the end. And that's all anybody remembers of Season 2. Luke Skywalker killing Dark Troopers. That's all anybody remembers. Nobody remembers anything else. That's it. And Season 3 was dog shit because Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, they're not really good at Star Wars. They aren't. So right now, he doesn't actually, in the first section here, doesn't actually tell us why it failed, why they're bad at it, just actually gives the list, but gives no explanation why. I gave you the explanation why. And the other explanation why for the TV shows, none of these people understand Star Wars. Mandalorian and Grogu is not Star Wars at all. It shrank the universe into 5 or 6 planets. And Book of Boba Fett was a joke. It was stupid. I remain on the point. Guillermo del Toro did it just to get some goodwill so he might be able to do Alita 2. That's it. It was so bad, they threw in Mandalorian episodes to save it at the end. And Obi-Wan, he brings up Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan was a disaster. It may have done well in the beginning, but by the end of it, nobody was watching because it was a joke. They twisted the lore to get one more cheap lightsaber duel that was horribly choreographed in the first place. But in the end, all they did was diminish Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader. That's all they did. It was a cheap push that failed. All so they could have also Reva be there in Disney Star Wars and let you know that Luke Skywalker only survives in Disney Star Wars because Reva let him. Andor. You guys know my thoughts on Andor, and if you don't, Andor sucks. Andor sucks because if you take out every little bit of Star Wars in there, it actually still works really well, which means it isn't Star Wars. It ruins characters. It further pushes the lore-breaking to extremes where these characters don't work or don't fit and the events don't properly line up in real Star Wars lore. And it worked also because Tony Gilroy took it seriously. Unlike these other shows, Tony Gilroy did take it seriously, but that's all it was, serious. Had no heart, had no soul. It was dog shit. You could not like me for saying that, but it's the truth. And then, of course, Ahsoka. Ahsoka, Dave Filoni's crown jewel, the girl who can never die, who now is the center of everything in Star Wars. Rebels, Bad Batch, that's in there. Nobody watched that shit either. They were celebrating the end of the 10-year anniversary of Rebels yesterday. Nobody cares about Rebels, a bunch of retards on a stupid little freighter with fake Thrawn chasing them, Inquisitors that shouldn't even exist, and cucking Darth Vader too. Everything here is dog shit, and Ahsoka was the crown jewel of Dave Filoni's bullshit animation world, and it failed because it was a joke. And then the Acolyte. Here's where he completely loses his focus. All he's done here is tell us how many minutes viewed and the critic and fan reaction, the glossed over version of critic fan reaction he shows. And when he gets to the Acolyte, right here, I'll read it. I'll read this one to you. The Acolyte received largely positive critic reviews and sparked a raging culture war battle that once again exposed the ugly side of the online fandom. The Acolyte's backlash and criticism is difficult to parse as many fans detail their creative objections to the show's storytelling as its bold take on the Jedi lore. Just because we didn't like this doesn't mean we're racist, basically. Some other Acolyte bashers were, well, clearly racist. No. He gives one paragraph to the actual meat of why the Acolyte failed. That shows you he doesn't take this analysis seriously, and he is actually on the side of the degenerate weirdos. They have yet to show receipts, nobody showed any evidence of racism in the Acolyte backlash. It was pushed back by real Star Wars fans, a lot of whom had been apathetic for a while, but got a fire lit under them when the show actively destroys the lore. It actively butchers how the Force works. It actually goes after George Lucas set-in-stone stuff. Not to mention, once again, this guy doesn't do his homework. He leaves out the fact, he says right here, it just says 100 years before the Phantom Menace, doesn't tell you it starts at the end of the Disney manufactured period called the High Republic, which has been a complete failure. Your entire analysis is missing a large section. The High Republic has failed. It was an initiative created to replace the expanded universe, and nobody buys it. Not the books, not the comics, and there are no games. No games. Nobody reads it. Nobody cares about it. And this was supposed to be the crown jewel of it. It was supposed to be the beginning of the end of it so they can transition to something else. And nobody watched it. He does get it right down here and says nobody watched it. It fell off the charts. But he leaves out the fact that the battle about its pop culture status was not about racism. It was about destruction of lore. It was about disrespect to characters. And he also leaves out a point here. Do your research. Not 180 million, 230 million. That was the cost. Disney lost $230 million. That's why they canceled it. He admits it got canceled because of cost and no audience. But he doesn't talk about the fact that the stands, once it was canceled, decided to go on basically a tantrum tirade from it's still going on now. Save the Acolyte, renew the Acolyte. Damn you, Disney. We're threatening violence on people. We're having our fake, stupid, weird petition that we all signed, but nobody else signed because nobody watched it. This show was made for weirdos, and they all showed up. And it proved once more. That's the core of this in the end. They're all angry, including this guy, that the Acolyte wasn't a success because it revealed the truth. Disney is not only bad at Star Wars, but they're bad at Star Wars because they've marketed it to a minute, infinitesimal group of people. The modern audience. And the Acolyte's failure proved why Disney is bad at Star Wars. They've tailored it to weirdos. Now, we go on here. What they're going to do going forward. This is a lot of bullshit. He'll mention the failed Galactic Star Cruiser. Going forward, what are you going to do? Galactic Star Cruiser failed, lost them money. They're bad at the parks. Nobody goes to Galaxy's Edge. Nobody went to the Galactic Star Cruiser because it was $1 billion boondoggle. And what do they got going forward? Mando movie, Rey movie, Skeleton Crew, nothing. Disney Star Wars is bad, but this guy doesn't accurately make the case. He doesn't. This entire argument was settled years ago. Honestly, it was settled in The Last Jedi. They were bad at Star Wars. They've always been bad at Star Wars. Retrospectively, you look at The Force Awakens, they were always bad at Star Wars. This article doesn't make a proper case. It leaves important points out. It doesn't spend enough time on the fact that the entire animation block is geared around Dave Filoni's world. They're bad at Star Wars because they put so much into Dave Filoni's vision of Star Wars, which is not the vision of George Lucas. Dave Filoni honestly hates George's Star Wars. He wants it to be his. That's why he works so hard at changing it. None of this here. None of these are Star Wars. And that's why Disney's bad. In the end, this article doesn't deliver on the key facts. There are 3 reasons why Disney's bad at Star Wars. 1, they left George's vision behind and went with visions like Dave Filoni and Leslie Headland. 2, they made it for an audience that is non-existent, an infinitesimal, stupid, retarded, agenda-driven audience that are full of fake fans and stans. And 3, they hate the real fans. They call us all kinds of names because we didn't sit down, open our mouths, and let the Disney dog shit and then tell us, it's good, isn't it? And then wait for us to say, yes, sir, it is. May I have some more? Those are the reasons they're bad at Star Wars. In the end, Disney Star Wars will fail. It will go away. And there will come a time when it is not even spoken of. But George's Star Wars, George Lucas' Star Wars, his sandcastles will remain in beautiful, pristine, beloved condition. Because, yes, Adam, a sandcastle can get washed away by a wave. No, because fans, true, passionate fans, will stand there as a wall to protect them from getting washed away. Because fans are the lifeblood of everything. All right, I'm done. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, a like would be very much appreciated. If you are new here, I invite you to subscribe to me right here on YouTube, or hope to earn your trust and support using facts and logic, because facts and logic do not care about fake fan stan and SJW fifis. Thank you again for watching. Take it easy. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, check out my gaming channel at Renaissance Nerd Arcade, and follow me on X Twitter under @TheRedNerd. Thanks again for watching. Take it easy.